everyone, Sophia here, My Great Challenger. Welcome back to my channel, and I believe a very anticipated video. I am here with Mom.
Hello.
And Mom is visiting for 40 days, and if you've watched my channel in the past couple of months, you know that I have spent time entirely redesigning my sewing studio for the purpose of being able to sew and learn to sew with Mom. So we are starting today, and we are both making interior jackets, kind of like robes for the boys, and I'm going to show you our patterns because we are doing similar but a little bit different. So mine is a 1950s smoking jacket, interior jacket, you may want to call it that way. It's a medium size. That's going to be for William. And Mom is doing Simplicity pattern. It's basically the same company, but this one is much more modern. It's almost the same pattern, but you'll see that the patterns themselves are a little bit different. And that's the reason why we are choosing to do this. So you get to see two different styles of patterns, one from the 1950s, and this one is, I think, from this year. I'm not sure. It's from this year's catalog, definitely. So before we get started, let me show you all the supplies, the colors that we picked, and I hope you enjoy this. So let me start with mine, and these are the colors that I picked for Willie's. Mine is going to be a main color. This is like a light rust color. However, I am going to do an accent on the collar, the cuffs, and probably the top of the pockets, and that accent is going to be with cats because, you know, he loves cats, and I think it's fun. This is, by the way, 100% cotton flannel that we purchased at Joann's. We got matching thread, Coats and Clark's all-purpose thread, and I'm going to add, I don't know if you can see it, I hope it's in focus, but this is bias tape piping basically, and the piping is going to go in between this and this as an accent along the edges of the collar, the cuffs, and the pocket. Mom is doing something very similar but different colors. She's picked, for Edward, she's picked a burgundy flannel, and this is going to be her accent for the collar. And you can see here that they show you the collar and the cuffs being a different color. So she's picked that, and she has this piping, which is a little bit more of a cord with some silver and blue. The color is repeated right here. Here's the Coats and Clark thread that she picked to match with it. And one of the things that we're going to do on the inside for the inner part of the sleeve, perhaps not for mine, but definitely for hers, is bias tape to cover the seam. It's much more comfortable to wear. Now, when you look at these patterns, both of them will ask for interfacing for the collar, the cuffs, and maybe the pockets. I'm not sure. We haven't looked at the patterns yet. But instead of using interfacing, which is kind of a modern thing to use, we're going back to old ways of using regular fabric. So we're going to use this flannel here as a sandwich inside the collar, the pockets, and maybe the pockets, and definitely the cuffs. It will stiffen the fabric on the collar, and the cuffs give it a little bit more of a tailored look. And these are all our supplies. So let's open the patterns, look at the difference, and we're gonna get started. So you just saw me open the 2312 1950s medium size pattern. And when you look at a pattern, you're going to see these different views. View 1, 2, and 3. I am doing view number 3. So my first job is to pull out the pieces that are strictly related to number 3 and refold and place back in the pocket those that are not. So this is the pattern for the front of the robe. It's the same one for all 3. However, one of the things that they will show you right here, view number 3, where I'm doing it, there's a cutting line right here. So this is where you would cut to make it a short one. When you open your pattern packet, you're going to get your instructions, and this is the one that came with mine. And whether it's a vintage or a modern pattern, they're all going to show you all the pieces of patterns that are needed for your particular robe, dress, pants, whatever you're doing. This pattern will indicate that the seam allowance is included, meaning that basically you're going to cut right here and the seam is over here, and it actually shows you the seam line. And you'll see that mom's pattern will not show you that. So this is something that they used to do in the vintage patterns. Very practical. I don't know why they stopped. Anyway, when you cut a pattern, if it comes in one big piece, you'll have to cut outside of each piece. And for this one, they've done it for you. So I have about 3/4 of an inch right here, and then 3/4 of an inch right here. That's where the seam line is. So when I'm going to apply my pattern directly onto my fabric, I will just cut right on this line. So one of the first things I'm going to do is pull out the pieces that are strictly related to view number 3, because that is the one I am doing. So this here is basically the 2 parts from a sleeve, and this is a raglan sleeve, and mom is going to explain to me how this works, what the legends are, because you're going to see a lot of little symbols, and some of you who are trying to learn to sew probably need that information. So let's have mom explain, and I will do subtitles.
Nous avons une manche raglan qui part du col, c'est-à-dire très haut, jusqu'au poignet. La manche est en 2 parties parce que c'est un raglan. Elle sera cousue comme ça.
Okay.
Bon. Quand nous allons couper cette manche, il va falloir s'intéresser au droit fil du tissu. Le droit fil du tissu évite d'avoir des déformations de tissu quand on s'attire. Ça sera toujours très serré. Bon.
Okay.
Il y a un devant, ici, front, et un back. Le devant est toujours plus échancré que le dos. Le dos est beaucoup plus long parce que le dos demande des mouvements lorsque l'on bouge les bras. Donc il faut de l'aisance dans les manches à l'arrière. Sur une manche, on voit ici des dessins qui correspondent exactement face à face avec les coutures qui vont être prises. Ces repères sont indispensables d'être marqué au moment de la découpe du patron. Cette ligne-là, c'est rallonger éventuellement ou raccourcir la manche. Pour mesurer une manche, on part, une manche raglan, on part du col, on suit la ligne de couture qui est ici, et on va jusqu'au poignet.
Et si c'était une manche normale?
Si c'est une manche normale, une manche rapportée, c'est-à-dire cousue là, on part à ce moment-là de cette couture-là, en suivant le coude toujours. Parce que c'est la pliure du bras qui donne la longueur de la manche. Comme vous voyez, les vêtements sont toujours pliés au coude, donc il faut de l'aisance. Si on mesure un bras comme ça, automatiquement la manche va remonter quand on va plier le bras.
So here we have a modern pattern that's multi-sizes, right? Mine was only medium, and you will see that for each piece you will have a small, medium, and large, and those again are the cutting lines. So to prepare your pattern before you apply it to your fabric, basically you would have to cut each piece outside of the cutting line, and you would end up with individual pieces just like mine right here. There was a pocket that was pre-cut, and you see how they leave just about 3/4 of an inch. So that's the prep for that particular pattern. When it's multi-size, you have to basically cut individual pieces that you're going to need. When you open your packet, you're going to have all the instructions on how to sew, but they're also going to give you how many pieces you need for each. So you have this piece right here that's 7, and that's the one that's right here, indicated by the number. Other than that, everything is the same. You're going to have the same arrows indicating where you're going to follow the grain of the fabric, and you'll have your little notches here to match. This one is the color, so it's going to have to match to the other side of the color. Other things that the pattern will tell you is that, for instance, here it says cut 2 of fabric, meaning that you're going to double the fabric, place your pattern, and when you cut, you're going to have 2 pieces. One is going to go one way and the other one is going to go the other way. So these are basically 2 pieces that you're going to get and join to make one color. So here's the sleeve for Mom's robe, and you're going to see that her sleeve is totally different. Her sleeve is one piece. It's basically going to be a tube. So that's the piece right here that goes on the shoulder. Right here would be the middle of the shoulder, and they are giving you the little marks that you're gonna have to mark on your fabric when you are sewing. Same thing, right? You're gonna see the grain. So one of the things that we're going to make sure we do after Mom has cut all of the pieces is iron everything, because you can see that there's some pieces where it's a little bit folded, so this has got to be flat when you apply it to the fabric. So everything is going to have to be ironed before we apply it and start cutting. So I'm starting to place my pattern on the fabric, and we'll do Mom afterwards, because there's 2 different ways of doing it. See, I'm keeping my little extra piece right here. I'm not pre-cutting on the line. Mom likes to pre-cut on the line so she can get the notches. I do the notches as I go, but we'll show you. Bottom line is, this is fabric with that nap. So if you look at the pattern, it will tell you how to place your pattern on fabric with or with that nap. Nap is basically a fuzzy stuff. So if you had like a raised fabric, a velvet or anything like that, that would be with nap. This is without nap. So I'm just following the way they're doing it. Somewhat, it's the same width, but there's some pieces that I'm doing on the other fabric, so I am doing that separately. So what you want to make sure is that you follow the grain. Okay, so this has to be parallel to the edges of the fabric. This is the piece that's the back, and you will see here that it will say center back place line on fold for fabric. So here's the fold, right? This is not the part that opens up like here. The fabric is folded onto itself, so you place that line directly onto the fold. And what happens is that it's gonna, since it's two pieces, right, it's going to open up like this, and you'll have a full back. The back doesn't have a seam line in the middle of it. I'm just gonna start cutting, and this one you cut straight on the line right here. These dots here are another kind of markers, and these you basically have to mark them with a pen. This is one of those that washes, so you do one dot here, and you pretty much have to do a dot on the other side as well. So what I do is just go at it like this with the fabric, go on the other side, and I put my dot right here. So for this mark here, I wanted to show you a different way of doing those little notches. If you don't want to try to work on doing those little triangles, you can get one of those little Tailor notch thing. But I'm going to do a notch on the one in the middle. So here's one right here. Let me do another one right here. Okay, and here. So that fabric is notched. I can just cut it right here, right? And I have my 3 marks. We're at the part where I have to cut the pattern fabric, and Mom is going to teach me how to place a pattern onto this type of fabric so that I have the same on the left side and the right side. This is the color that we're doing.
Alors, nous suivons le droit fil toujours, de façon à ce que les chats soient alignés le long du col. Quand nous aurons coupé ce morceau-là, pour avoir, ça c'est le côté droit, pour avoir le côté gauche, on retourne le patron de l'autre côté et on recherche exactement le droit fil et on retrouve exactement la même chose, gris-marron, tout le long.
So this right here is the grain of the fabric, but it's also going to be the fold for the color. So the part that's right here is the part that's going to show on the front of the robe. So what I want is pick which cats I want to show the most. And it's going to be the gray, brown, gray, brown. I'm picking those because that particular brown is the same one than the other fabric. I'm following the grain of the fabric like this, and I'm going to cut this one first Then I'll take the pattern again and apply it upside down on a similar piece of fabric that has the same pattern. I'll have to match what I have here because that's the part of the color that's actually going to show. Flip it the other way around. Now, if I was doing just a no pattern, right, or a fabric that is a solid, I would just fold the fabric in half and I would just cut once and I would get 2 pieces, right? But this is a pattern, it's different. So I need to do the same thing. I need to align my cats. So I have the gray brown wherever I need them. And I remain in the grain. And that would be this. All right, I'm back with Mom. I just finished cutting. I know it's a different day. I just finished cutting everything. So I want to show you something. So what I'm doing is I've cut my pieces, but I am keeping my pattern attached to it. And the reason why we want to do that is that when it's time to sew, I can find the pieces, right? So this is the back of the collar. They call it the facing. It's basically going to be like a scarf, right? So the underside of it is the rust color, but the front part of it is going to be my cats. Okay, let me pull one out so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, here we go. All right, so these are my cats, and I just showed you how to cut in a way where you get the pattern to be straight and to follow along. So any pattern you have, that one was particularly difficult because they are big cats, but if you have like a smaller pattern, it's much easier. Now, my method was to cut on the line, but I left the extra paper that was around. Mom has a different way, and I'm going to show you, and she's done that her entire life, where when she cuts a pattern before she places it on the fabric, she cuts the whole pattern directly on the cutting line. She doesn't have any extra. So I'm going to ask her what's the difference and is there any advantage, because I know that people do different methods on cutting the pattern. Quel est l'avantage de couper ton patron avant de le poser directement sur la ligne plutôt que de laisser du papier comme moi j'avais?
Je vois pas l'avantage, mais je vois l'inconvénient.
Okay.
L'inconvénient, c'est d'avoir des petits bouts de papier qui traînent partout, alors que tu n'as pas besoin de ça quand tu fais de la couture.
We're going to talk about notches because there's different ways of doing the notches. So you saw that on mine, I did the little notch right here with the little tool that I have. Some people don't like doing that because it actually kind of weakens the fabric, in particular if you have like very fine fabric like a silk, for instance, and depending on your seam, you may end up having a part of your fabric that is too close to the seam. The other method is the one that I was doing on other pieces, where you have your little notch like this, you do another notch that's inverted, like you do another triangle that's on the outside. That way you still have your mark, you're not weakening your fabric, it's just a pain to have to cut it. Mom is going to tell you what she does, which is technically the superior way of doing it. She's going to show you what we refer to as Tailor tacks. So this is one way of doing it. You just do 3 stitches.
Ça évite de couper le tissu.
So that way you don't have to cut the fabric one way or another. You know, do the point outward or the point inward. laquelle la meilleure méthode?
Laquelle tu préfères?
Oui.
Ben, je préfère celle où on fait les...
Où ils sont près du bord?
Oui, les deux bords, non pas réunis, mais les deux bords séparés.
Ok. Pourquoi?
C'est ce qu'il y a de plus facile. Bon, et puis, c'est plus long. Ça, c'est plus vite fait, mais l'autre est plus il risque pas, les fils ne risquent pas de partir, quoi.
Okay, so this was video number 1. What we still need to do is the basting for everything. So in the next video, we are basting and Mom is going to show us the French seam. Tu nous fais la couture anglaise la prochaine fois? Okay. So
Couture française. En fait, dite anglaise, mais...
In France, we call it the English seam. Apparently, outside of France, it's a French seam. Because that's allowing you to not have the edge of the fabric on the outside. It's basically hidden inside. Never done it before, so I'm definitely gonna have to learn, and we're going to do samples first, and then we're gonna start sewing. So what I've learned is that just like painting, sewing is all about the prep work. You know, when you have to scrape and you have to pick up all the scrape stuff, and then you have to patch holes, and then you have to sand, and then you have to wash, and all of this stuff. And then the painting itself is super fast. In sewing, it's basically the same thing. You spend the majority of your time doing the prep work, and then the actual piecing together is a no-brainer. All right, so I enjoyed this. I hope you did too. Ça s'est bien passé?
Oui, parfaitement, oui.
Ok. J'apprends?
Je crois que tu as appris quelque chose, oui.
Ok.
Et tu te débrouilles déjà pas mal.
Mom says I'm already doing not too bad, so... But that's the easy stuff. Non, ça, je sais faire. Ce que je sais pas faire, c'est faire un col, par exemple.
Oui, mais c'est
Puis
pas
alors,
facile, oui.
Une pâte, là, je sais pas faire la pâte.
Oui.
Enfin, bref, on verra. This is a kind of like an easy project. We just wanted to start with this, and as we go, not this time around, but next time Mom comes, we'll get into more complicated stuff. So I hope you enjoyed this series, and we'll come back for episode number 2. Until then, thank you for watching. You can subscribe right here in the corner and hit that bell button so you get notified when I post a new video, in particular in this series. Find me on Facebook and Instagram at mygreatchallenge. Don't forget Patreon, patreon.com/mygreatchallenge for exclusive content not seen on YouTube, unless rare occasions where I do early access. And that would be it. Thank you for watching. À la semaine prochaine, donc.
À la semaine prochaine, oui.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.